everybody. Line.
Welcome to What Drives Us.
Welcome to What Drives Us. It's been a long time since I've hosted a show. It can only get better from here. I, this week, am your host, Tony Schaefer. I'm Tony Schaefer every week, but this week I'm giving Russell the week off, and we're going to try to get back to alternating hosting positions back and forth. He's been carrying the show for far too long. Now it's time for me to drop it. I know, right? He leans. It's been on his shoulder for so long.
Drop and like it's a hot base, huh?
It's more like a hot potato. Yeah. I want to start by introducing our the man of the hour who, well, I shouldn't say man of the hour, the man who has been hosting for so long. My co-host, my wingman, the man in the bottom left corner of America. He is Mr. Russell Frost.
You took all of my intro lines, like hello from beautiful San Diego, where I think we reached a high temperature of 64 degrees today. The sun came out at 10:30. Yay. Otherwise, just another perfect day in America's finest city. Welcome to a very fun show. I'm looking forward to our special guest.
Yes. I'm going around the horn, and he is our man in Boulder, Colorado, where it just recently started snowing, I believe. The owner of Boulder Hybrids, where he tears apart, repairs, and occasionally rebuilds other people's hybrids. He is Mr. Paul Guzik.
Yes, I'm glad to be here, and I may not be going home tonight. So,
could be snowed in. We could do a marathon show. You could hang out with us all night.
Yeah.
Do 20 episodes. That'd be the
and to make it worse, I'm stuck with Genesee beer.
Genesee!
It's like I'm back in college.
Where did you even get that in Colorado?
Someone left it here. I don't know.
It's been
with
there
all the
since
beer we have, and they brought Genesee. It was regifted, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Does the can have a best by date on it?
Yes, 1982.
It says you are a fool to drink this.
Yeah. It says this beer is no longer good if you're more than 20 years old. Yes. Okay, so
if you're finished with college, you shouldn't be.
Yes, you're finished with college. You're finished with Genesee. He is our farthest north panelist. He is the Waterloo Region Voltec Group EV Association Volt Model 3 plug-in enthusiast, hubcap emporium. He is Mr. Mark Coughlin.
That was a spectacular intro, Tony.
Making it up as I go along.
No one can tell, trust me. Welcome to the show, everyone.
All right, throwing it over to the upper left corner, the man who is constantly filling our Facebook feed, Oregon Electric Vehicle Association, carswithcords.org. Give it up for Mr. Patrick Connor, .net, carswithcords.net.
Yes, hello. I am excited to have our special guest on, my neighbor here in Oregon, and I'll let you introduce him next.
And next is, let's see, the author of.
It's
I know. I have two. See, I have two things written down for him. Nationally known writer, currently calls The Drive his home. Released Ludicrous, the unvarnished story of Tesla Motors. Co-hosts Autonicast, a podcast focusing on autonomous cars, automated driving, and the future of mobility. He is Mr. Ed, is it Niedermeyer?
Tweedermeyer.
It's Niedermeyer, yeah. So it rhymes with tweet. Tweedermeyer is my Twitter handle. Hey, thanks for having me.
And that was a reference for those of you who didn't see Ed on Bloomberg Live earlier today, where they mispronounced his name a couple of times, right?
Yeah, just the once. But
okay.
I'm actually also not at the Drive anymore, so it's just all kinds of bad information about me running around out there.
Most of it true.
Fake news.
One more media org dedicated to slandering your good name.
I do what I can to feed out fake news. Yes. And finally, last but definitely not least, our alt champion driving. What do you have? You still have a Model X,
Yes.
and well, you can go to his YouTube site, youtube.com/Casey Green. He is Mr. Casey Green.
That's me. Today I'm drinking a special local blend of hydrogen, oxygen, and trace minerals.
Ooh, dihydrogen oxide. Mm.
You might watch out on that. You know, have you ever seen what dihydrogen oxide can do to metals?
It'll rust them.
Just, I know, right?
It's a major component in drownings too.
Yes.
It's involved with acid rain. It's horrible stuff.
So we are going to start with our very special guest. As we alluded to, Ed Niedermeyer was on Bloomberg Live earlier today, and he was having an appearance discussing Tesla's valuation, and we wanted to have him on so that he could expand upon some of the talking points that he provided on the show. And Ed, I'm just going to let you take it away.
Well, cool. Yeah, so I was asked to come on Bloomberg to debate Cathie Wood, who is I don't know, she's in charge of ARK Invest, which is a fund that has done extremely well because it's been very, very bullish on Tesla, and Tesla stock, as most people know, has been doing very, very well recently. So she's been on the media a bunch. They wanted me to provide some contrasting perspective, which, given that even with the run up in stock being what it's been, she's still, I think her price target it's in the thousands of dollars. It was 4,000. I think she upped it to
7,000 last
7,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. And before you, full disclosure, I am a ARK investor. I have 2 of their ETFs. I've had them for over a year now, and they've done really well. And these are not the Tesla ones. These are in other sectors. They have several ETFs.
Right. So yeah, I mean, she's just been very, famous, notorious, whatever you want to say, as a major Tesla bull, and so I'm not an equities analyst, so I don't do valuations on companies. That's not my thing. But and in fact, really before Tesla, I was like totally never paid attention to markets at all, really. And the Tesla story has really sucked me into paying a lot more attention to them than I did ever thought I would. But she and to her credit, and I disagree with her about a lot, but she and ARK, they put their sort of model up online, so they're very transparent about their assumptions. And really, I think what I wanted to do was sort of just question some of the assumptions that underlie our valuation, right? Because people have different methods of applying multiples to cash flows, and there's all kinds of ways to evaluate a company. But the fundamental question is what's actually going to happen with that business? And I think there's the assumptions that underlie their very, very, very bullish projections are one that sort of the EV market or the car market is in the middle of this sort of demand-driven, complete shift to electric vehicles. As appealing as that is, it's something I want to believe. I like electric vehicles. I just don't think there's a ton of evidence to support that happening on the kind of time frame that they're projecting and to the extent that they're projecting. The other one is autonomous vehicles. I think they're way, 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 way more optimistic. Again, I have a podcast about autonomous vehicles. I think about them, talk about them all the time. I think they're great. I think right now, actually, a lot of people have gotten too pessimistic about them because of this sort of trough of disillusionment. But I think they're still not only way too optimistic about the timelines and the development of markets around AVs, but also specifically with Tesla. I think their belief that Tesla is a leader in autonomous vehicle technology is not very well supported by the facts. So those are kind of the...
By what facts?
Well, I mean, just evidence, right? So I've been in a lot of different...
They've stated their evidence. Then, you can't just say it's not supported by the facts and not back that up.
Okay, yeah. So what I'm saying is I've been in and seen videos of like a lot of autonomous vehicles. I've been in a Waymo that was driving with literally no one in the driver's seats, right? Like there was no one else. I was in a Zoox just the other day in San Francisco through crazy, like some of the craziest driving. And if you've driven in San Francisco, you know, and this is not like the chill part of San Francisco either. This is the crazy part of San Francisco. And this, you know, some of these companies have really, really amazingly impressive technology. And I haven't seen anything from Tesla that even begins to come close to demonstrating that level of capability. And yet they're saying that they're going to be offering a level 5, which is, you know, ultimate autonomy, for lack of a better way of putting it. And companies like Zoox are saying they're only going to be level 4. They're only going to be operating in certain areas. So, you know, Tesla, the combination of the level 5 goal and the fact that they're using much more basic sensing hardware than everybody else in autonomy, you know, it just doesn't.
Are you sure it's not just much instead of much?
Oh, it's much. In fact, if anything, I left a couple muches out there.
Okay.
So, it's who else is offering a product right now that will take me through DC traffic from my office to my home without me touching the wheel, other than, you know, sensing that I'm there? I mean,
Cadillac you can't not touch your wheel.
You can't not touch your wheel, Casey.
Without making input to the wheel, without me steering.
So, without an orange sandwiched in there.
Right. That works.
My hand will play the place of the orange just in case I need to take over.
Would you? Okay. So what you're saying is that your car, you can get in your driver, you know, in the like walk me through what you're actually describing here, because when you say a car drives itself, that means a lot of different things to different people. But
what I'm saying there is I can't buy any of the other products, but I get to the on-ramp, I push the button, and then it drops me off at the next off-ramp.
Okay. So
an hour and a half later, 30 miles.
Right.
Done.
Okay. So you're talking about the ability to, you know, navigate on the highway, essentially.
Yeah, and it passes all the slowpokes too.
Yeah. So I mean, look, you know, highway is a very simple domain.
Oh, I wouldn't call it that.
It just fundamentally is.
Compared to some
simpler
of the
than the rest of
statistically.
There's no pedestrians, no cyclists.
On that point, Ed. But what they were stating wasn't the capabilities of the car today. It's the underlying infrastructure that Tesla is creating that allows them to gather data and train their system, which is at a scale and scope that no one else can compare to.
So that's been wild.
I don't think that Tesla's ever called out level 5. They've described something that sounds like level 5.
Look at the transcript watch the video. The first conference call when full self-driving was announced, literally the first sentence, he said level 5. In Autonomy Week, he also reiterated level 5. So that is absolutely what they have been taking money for.
At Autonomy Week, level 5 was gone. It became level 4.
He repeated level 5.
But level 5 was no longer a standard at Autonomy Day. It literally only level 4 is available.
Yes, it was.
Well, they're not restricting.
We can go back and
argue. That's the major difference between 4 and 5. So again, I don't want to, but I'll side with Ed on that part.
Okay.
So
they did. Okay. They did literally. So the people who make the standards, they did come back and re-level them. So 4 is the
okay.
highest,
Okay. Wait. Can I cut through this for just a second? Go ahead. I get it. We can piss all over each other about what's level 4 and what's level 5 and what Elon said 5 years ago and what he said last week and all of that.
Okay.
But let's be clear. Elon has talked about full self-driving.
He has from AP1, which couldn't do it.
All of these things that lead people to believe that the car is no hands on the wheel, drives itself. Right now, nobody has that. Waymo, Zoox, some of these other startups that are still in testing are doing it in a geofenced area. Ed, is that fair?
Yes. Level 4. Yeah. Geofenced.
Now, I don't want to shut things down, but I also just don't want this to get into a pissing match where we start arguing about what's level 4 and what's level 5. That's a tedious show.
Okay, so there's a much easier distinction to make here, right? What autopilot is, and I guess navigate on autopilot adds a slightly different dimension to it, but on a fundamental level, it's 2 systems, right? It's adaptive cruise control and it's a lane keeping system. Okay, now when you're on the highway, automating those two parts of the driving task feel like it's doing everything. It feels like the car is driving. But what's happening is you're not automating driving writ large, everything to do with driving. You're automating two specific aspects of the driving task, two sub-tasks. And you're doing it at a level of reliability that is such that the driver needs to maintain awareness and alertness at all times. We know, and so right, so Russell alluded to one issue, and for me, I have two specific criticisms of Tesla's automated driving strategy. First is that they have oversold autopilot's capabilities, and we have situations where people have died because they haven't been paying attention. They've been treating those systems as more autonomous. We can debate that, but like people have died. And it was because they hit obstacles that they should have been able to see but weren't paying attention to. So that's one separate issue, and that's a question of implementation of a driver assistance system.
We don't even know if people were alive when they hit the obstacles, but go ahead.
But yeah, and if you want to compare that to just people with no automated system, no autonomy, no driver assist, that happens as well.
Yeah, but that's not the point. The point isn't that
is the point. That
no. The point is
that
I pull the button. It says hold the wheel.
I'm sorry. How much safer is this autopilot supposed to be?
Well, their goal
is
versus what they say is, but they've proven with their own numbers, they've shown the evidence that they are safer, whether you've pulled the trigger or not. That's only if you discount their what they've laid forth.
No, it's only if you discount what they compare it to, right? So they're comparing very expensive, very new cars being operated in limited and relatively easy domains to 11-year-old cars on average costing $30,000 or $34,000 or whatever on average being operated in every domain. It's not a fair comparison. But honestly, I mean, we can debate the driver assistance question and predictable abuse and all that. I'm happy to do that. But I think in the context of Tesla's valuation, I don't think autopilot matters all that much. I think what matters is full self-driving and whether they're going to actually be able to deliver on that. But I'm happy to discuss either. It's really up to you guys. It's your show.
I'm glad to see that people are finally valuing the rest of their business. Like for the longest time, they did completely the energy wasn't included in it, which is insane.
Do you think that's what's happening? Do you think that's why the stock's up?
I was at work all day today, so I don't know exactly what happened today. I just saw that it went up.
I just mean in general, like over the last, because I've been trying to figure out over the last 4 months.
It looks like this year that they have started to finally put some numbers to the rest of the business.
Okay.
I think it's more.
I don't know. I think part of it is tulip mania.
It could be that as well. Totally could be that as well.
I think it's kind of that it's been depressed for such a long time, and it just seems like a number of analysts switched or started to switch, and it just seems like many other people jumped on board along with it, and it's swelled like it's like a pendulum switch. It went too far one way, and now people have switched and got on board, and it's just progressed in that direction, maybe too far the other way. But it's an interesting that it was almost like the tide coming in and the tide going out, and it literally in the span of time for a stock momentum, it was a really short time for it to
it's
switch.
Like before the big tsunami that goes out and then it comes in and takes out everybody.
And everybody runs down to the beach and says, "Woo, this is fun! This is fun!" Yeah.
But is it done swinging the other way, or are we in mid-swing?
Yes.
How far are we?
Yeah. If I knew that, I wouldn't be on this show.
Right.
Ask Patrick.
It's a $917 question.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there are some good points, and and in the interview on Bloomberg, Ed brought up the point that this Tesla, we can no longer really refer to Tesla as a startup because they went IPO in 2010, right? So we know that they're at least 10 years old. So they operate like a startup, but a 10-year-old company, I think, is beyond the startup phase. But there was the question about the stock being suppressed. So is it that for the first 10 years, or let's say 9.5 years, no one believed the story? You know,
Or,
I mean,
yeah, many fewer people. So certainly, Musk has said himself there were multiple occasions where they were within single digit weeks of death. And so there were a lot of people predicting their demise, and that could have happened. Now it's pretty obvious that they are able to make cars and they can capitalize easily. They have access to money. They just raised another $2 billion recently, and the market rewarded them for that because it looks like it's going to allow them to grow faster, perhaps a Texas gigafactory. So I think the main reason I think the stock has jumped is that a lot of people now see them not as on the edge of death and that they will be long-term successful.
That makes sense.
And part of it, I think, is they put a leash on Elon, so he's not making these crazy claims like he used to.
Did they really?
Yeah.
They did?
He matured a little bit. Yeah.
It's all relative, right?
Right.
Compared to what he
It's
used
one
to.
of those elastic leashes, I think. Yeah.
You know what? I have a question. So for Ed, watching the Bloomberg TV thing, Kathy Wood from ARK Invest was going off on the reasons why Tesla is going to continue to grow. And one of them was that her short-term prediction was that it was going to, the Tesla would see a 40% margin in their vehicles, in their, where does that come from?
Does anyone ever see a 40% margin in vehicles?
Didn't they hit 50
So
for a minute?
she covered where it came from, and she mentioned it multiple times with Wright's Law, that as your economies of scale grow, your cost of production decreases, and that they are on a technology curve. So no one is making batteries at the scale that they are, and that they're going to ride that cost curve down. They're leading in that area. The recent high-bar acquisition is going to allow them to automate more of that production. And so you can look at the cost of batteries over the last decade, and they've dropped significantly. And that looks like it's going to continue into the next decade. That's one of the biggest costs for their vehicles, and that's going to reduce significantly, which will allow them to have more profit on their vehicle or sell them at a lower cost, opening up a larger market, leading to more revenue.
But there's a logical leap there, though, right? Because okay, so like let's accept that battery costs are coming down. By the way, we're still way off where they projected, right? I think Elon predicted that the $100 per kilowatt hour at the pack level was going to be last year or something like that, and it doesn't seem like they're actually there yet. But whatever, let's assume it keeps going down. Vertically integrating into that business is not going to help their margins, right? Getting into a commodity business, like, okay, maybe it helps their margin in the car, but they've got a lot of capital that's going to go into making this thing that prices are being depressed on, right? But also by doing that in-house, they only get to leverage the scale of batteries that are going into their cars. Whereas if you go with a supplier who's selling to multiple companies, yes, the supplier's going to take a margin, but they also get scale from selling to multiple EV makers. And so in theory, right, if scale is such a powerful force here, it seems like that's an argument against vertical integration.
Except that their scale is bigger than the entire market combined right now. Also,
and they're not doing just vehicles.
Exactly. And what were they at before the Model 3 launched?
I'm sorry, how many Powerwalls are they selling?
A lot.
Well, right now they're battery constrained.
How
right?
many?
Which is why they're building out.
Don't forget about the power
27.
packs.
How many?
About power packs.
If they're battery constrained, why haven't they built out the Gigafactory? Like, why is the Gigafactory still not the picture that they showed us when they launched that thing?
Right.
Like if it's battery constrained, right, that's a choice. They could invest in.
But don't forget that even though it's
Just
not
$2
as
billion.
big as they said it would be, it is also putting out 3 times more than it should have when it was completed. I mean, they're at or not 3 times, 2 times. They were
what they had originally contracted with Panasonic for.
Right, but they were saying 35, and now they're saying 50 at its current size.
They're not actually producing 50 though.
I have no clue.
But it's interesting too, because right now we also have news that they're going to be going with CATL for their Chinese ones, and they're actually going to be use lithium iron phosphate batteries. And so no, that's I mean, my sourcing seems pretty clear on that. It's going to be for their sort of the Chinese market standard range. They're more affordable. Their most affordable Model 3 is going to use these lithium iron phosphate. And that's interesting to me because like now, this story that the Gigafactory was going to be the source of all this scale that was going to drive down all this cost, and by building
we
all
got
these
into a trade war after
things
that,
at one
though.
place. Now it's like you're not just not building them at the Gigafactory, which okay, fine, but you're also not building them in the 2170 form factor. You're also not building them at the
campsize doesn't
in
matter.
the same chemistry, which would provide scale where what really matters, which is the feedstocks that go into it. That's where the cost really needs to come out, and that's where the scale could make a difference. But they're not doing so. Like this, it's fine. Like I'm not saying this is any of this is disastrous. It makes sense to me. I understand why they're doing it. It's just that I remember as sort of a historian of this company and having written a book about it, I remember what the story was, and everyone believed it then. It was, this is definitely the way it's going to happen. And now, as the story changes, it's like the story changes, and the certainty of confidence in what the story is right now never changes. And that to me, like, strikes me as problematic. It strikes me as there's a lack of analytical rigor going into how people are just looking at this company, and whether you like them or don't, analytical rigor is good. In fact, if you support a company, right, they should be able to withstand some analytical rigor, and I just don't see that around this company, which is
the story should change though as you get new data, as you get blowout sales on the Model 3, Model Y, Cybertruck. You should adjust your ability to produce.
Yeah, so
can we?
There's two
And we did
things
get into
there.
a trade war after they announced Gig of One.
you can't call them blowout sales if they're supposed to be 800,000. Like the story was also they're going to make 800,000 units this year. They're not going to do that. They're going to be lucky to make 500,000.
Well, everybody's Chinese factory shut down for a couple of weeks.
No, not because of because they were supposed to make they were supposed to make 800,000 units out of Fremont this year. Actually, last year they said they were going to make 800,000 or 520. Anyway, whatever. The point is that the story continues to change, and to claim that now sales are like blowing away what expectations were a couple of years ago, when in fact they're much, much less than Elon was projecting them to be a couple of years ago. It's just let's stick with the facts.
Yeah, and well, the fact is that Musk is a master at controlling the narrative and exciting the masses, but that are in the Tesla army, and that is a rallying cry, and it's more about the goal and the destination than what numbers were this quarter, last quarter, or even last year. So having that ability to have a rallying cry and a great goal and inspirational is important.
Yeah,
and he's really good at over-promising and under-delivering.
So actually, just one thing that I think is really interesting that plays into this loyalty question, because I think you're absolutely right, Patrick. I think the people always ask me like, oh, don't you feel bad about getting everything so badly wrong about Tesla? Look at their stock price and stuff, and they're still around. And I always say what I underestimated was Musk's ability to get people to continue to pump money into this company, because that's been the factor that's kept the company alive. Yes, it's required other things, but that's been the deciding factor. Okay, so something very interesting. I got my hands on a copy of the Reputation.com 2020 automotive report. It's quite interesting, and this is just one metric, and their methodology is what it is. They've been doing it for a long time. I'm not saying this is the absolute gospel, but it does track for me what I see sort of trends in the forums, really mostly TMC as the biggest one, but elsewhere as well, which is that like there does seem to be among owners. Now, investors are happier with Musk than ever, right? For good, obvious reasons. The owners, however, I think one of the reasons that Tesla's been able to turn out these fairly surprisingly consistent quarterly profits is because things are no longer as white glove and generous as they were on the service side. In part just because of they're not doing the Ranger stuff as much, but in part too they scaled up their volume and didn't really scale up their service footprint as alongside it. So Reputation.com, they have a whole little section on it on Tesla. Their reputation, according to these metrics and how they do it, is some of the worst in the business. particularly on service, and they particularly call out their service. They have a negative 2% service reputation score. And negative 11% speed of service, whatever. There's different metrics, but it's, and I posted some of this stuff, twitter.com/Tweetermeyer if you want to see it. But it's genuinely bad, and to me, that's something that I look at and I say, well, that's Musk pissing off that core army. And I've seen for a long time that investors and owners have kind of slightly different interests, clearly, right? And as that gap widens, I start to wonder what kind of effect that'll have on what we agree is the most important thing Tesla has, which is that ability to, like, the loyalty, right?
Right. So that is true, and it's a solvable problem. The question is, will they solve it before they end up shooting themselves in the foot? Yeah. I mean, we've talked about that on here. Paul, why doesn't Tesla allow you to do repairs?
Exactly. Also, the Ranger program is scaled up. There's 4 Rangers that I've met in my town. They try to do as much as they can mobile just to keep you out of the service center. I've got an appointment next Friday.
Well, we have more stuff to talk about. I just want to wrap this up. Saying, wrap it up real quick by saying, Ed hates automated looms. The rest of you belong to cult. All right. So I think we're done. Yes. No, it is absolutely fascinating. And I know the people watching this recorded video are right now typing in all caps. And that's awesome because we love the back and forth. We love hearing from our viewers. Just remember, it's at Tweetermeyer.
Thanks a lot.
Nice handoff.
Yes. So
my mentions weren't enough of a disaster as it is.
Yes. Autonocast is a fascinating podcast. If you are not subscribed to Autonocast, you need to. It's very noticeable. You will recognize its white icon with a very small A, underappreciated icon. And listen to it. You will learn so much about autonomous vehicles. So there's only 2 podcasts you need to pay attention to, Autonocast and this one.
Works for me.
All right. So
in reverse order.
Yes, right, exactly. Not in any particular order, but us first. Okay. I want to throw it over to Mark because, Mark, if I understand correctly, there was something to do with cars in your area?
Yeah, but if it didn't have Teslas in it, who cares?
It is Mark.
Moving on.
Mark got bored and tuned out.
Oh no, we're gonna see.
Hello.
Here.
Oh, there he is.
So I attended the Canadian International Auto Show happening in Toronto this past Thursday for Media Day. Was lucky to get in and peruse the selections. And of course, one of the ones I wanted to check out right away was the Ford Mach-e that was being displayed. Actually, they kept it on the spinner, and you weren't allowed to go up to it at all. You had to just nose up to the glass. So took a couple of photos of this was actually the GT model, and it was explained that the car was actually a pre-production vehicle. That's why they weren't letting anybody get in it or even open the doors. It was just to be on the wheel and look pretty, and that's all it was.
Metal, right? Not styrofoam.
It was metal, though, Paul. I was able to get close enough to see that. Yes, it was definitely a metal car. Absolutely.
Yeah, the pre-production hand-built Mach-e that was not available for a deep inspection was white at the Chicago Auto Show. But yes, it was explained that no, you're not allowed to touch it. No, you're not allowed to open the doors. And no, it's not a production vehicle. Also, Mark, I don't want to ruin anything for you.
The wheel covers because they don't look like they
didn't have any. Yeah, but if you take the sign that says "Stay off" of the display, you can get on the display. It's just a sign.
Knock the sign down and then get on.
They were really guarding the entrance to the stage, Tony. It was amazing. They had a representative standing in front of the stairs the entire time.
Oh man!
So the GT is the one that comes without the body-colored nose thing that looks
That's
like
correct.
Neo from the Matrix.
That is correct.
I like that one better.
So it was an impressive looking car. I tried to get someone to go up and actually take a photo of the inside. They wouldn't even do that. Even the representative wouldn't do it. So it was interesting that it was just a display model, but it was impressive looking for what it was showed at the auto show. So
will it make
interesting.
everyone hate me more if I say that I have actually sat in that very blue one?
Really?
Nice.
You were in the blue one.
At the LA show, yeah.
Oh
No,
man.
no, Ed, it will
Because
not.
he threw away the sign, "Do not enter."
I have my buddies in big oil, pull some strings and
Is that what's required? Okay. I didn't know. Okay.
How was the size like in person? How was it?
It was much larger than I thought in person compared to photos. So it looks like a fairly large. I wouldn't say it's quite as large as maybe the Audi e-tron size-wise, but it was a very it was bigger than I expected, to be honest, Casey.
Do you think we can get Russell in one?
Absolutely, Russell would be in. No problem. No
So,
problem.
guys, I don't want to ruin too much or come off to, hey, look at this, but hey, look at this. At the Chicago Auto Show, not only were we allowed to open the door.
Oh, God.
So this is my friend Andrew trying to open the door. And the neat thing is there's a capacitance button right here. It's not an actual push button, it's capacitance.
So was it locked?
And since he didn't have the fob, he couldn't open it.
Oh, okay.
But she could.
He was a ghost.
Would it work if you're wearing gloves, like in Canada?
Oh,
I don't know.
No way.
So I wasn't allowed to touch anything, but I was allowed to lean.
Wow.
Nice.
That's a good lean.
Yeah.
I like the styling there. I don't know about the knob, but the rest of it's all right.
If only you had friends in big oil who could let you actually sit in the car.
I know, right?
So Ed,
That's all right.
let me see if you agree or disagree with this statement. This vehicle would not exist if not for Tesla.
Oh, God. Why?
It certainly wouldn't have certain features if it weren't for Tesla. I mean, it's
All right.
and I mean I don't know. It's very hard at this point to even imagine what the world would be like without Tesla. I would have had the last 3 years of my life back, and it just things would be so different. It's a tough hypothetical for me to even
Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't want to reopen the can of worms. Okay.
No,
go
no,
ahead.
I mean,
Let's do that first. It was fun.
but clearly, right? Tesla's influenced a lot of people in the car business, and a lot of it has been for the good.
Okay.
Not all of it, but a lot of it for sure.
So when do you think they'll hit the volume there, Mark?
Well, they did say that the initial rollout is 50,000 vehicles. They say there's 3 vehicles in that 50,000, and the first release version has been sold out, but they won't tell us what that number is.
A white one, and what's the other color?
Well, there could be, Paul, but they will not tell us the number of that first run as to the one that's sold out. They won't break it down. They just say 50,000 overall for 2020 or the fiscal year after it was released.
Yeah, this is awesome. This is exactly what we've been asking for, is for the OEMs, the car makers, to make awesome EVs. And here they are doing it. It's a nice looking car, nice long range. Cool. Finally. I'm so happy.
And they're even launching with 5 different models. It's not just, here's the one.
Yeah.
The 5 models with different packs, different ranges, different, enough differentiation that it's like going to market with 5 different EVs in a way.
But they haven't said anything about distribution, like if every Ford dealer will be able to sell it or only special dealers or.
Yeah, my dad's kind of trying to figure that out because he wanted to put a deposit down. But the speculation was that Europe actually got a bigger cut of the percentage than we did.
Interesting.
Well,
Yeah.
they have tougher emission standards than we do.
Yeah.
That's
And
sorta-
more incentives and really expensive gas. So
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, Mark, I know you saw other cars.
Absolutely. I saw Ford's supercharger, which I have a picture of it here. It's not a supercharger. It's it's their version of a charger. It looks very much like the typical Tesla outside view. But what I found interesting was that they talked about charging network in the bottom left-hand corner of this picture. They have a map of North America showing all these dots. And basically, they indicate that this is North America's largest charging network. Now, this is not Ford's charging network. This, of course, is basically a plug share map where they're plotting different points from different networks. So it was questionable as to whether or not this is obviously not their network, but they're buying credits on other people's networks to help customers along.
Is there one in Saskatchewan?
There could be, Paul. I think there might be one. That looks like maybe not.
So it sounds like one manufacturer who shall not be named is saying, if you buy our car, you can charge at all of our infrastructure spots. Ford is taking another approach and saying, if you buy our car, you could charge at any one of these.
Spots.
Any of other people's spots.
The largest charging network in North America, apparently.
Built by other people, yes.
Built by others.
That's a network of sort of.
Yeah.
And Tony, as at the Chicago show, the Rav4 Prime made its introduction for the Canadian market as well. And we could go up to it, and they actually let us in that vehicle. But again, nice looking vehicle. I think this is going to sell a ton. I really do. This is the perfect form factor that people seem to want, that small SUV type style. And having
enough EV range for
having enough EV range to actually make it worthwhile is going to propel the sales of this vehicle. I think they're going to have a hard time keeping them in stock. I don't know what the actual allocation will be at this point, but this vehicle is going to be a hot commodity as far as I can see.
I bet you Toyota sells more Rav Primes than Ford sells Mach-E's in the first year that they come out.
Probably.
Well,
So
I'm not sure.
Are there fill doors on both sides, like the Prius Prime and Prius plug-in?
Yes.
And do they, since this has a bigger battery, do they take DC charging or still no?
No DC charging. No.
Now, did you say you were able to get inside?
They had the door open. There was a person that was inside of it. We were kind of rushed, so we didn't actually get inside, but somebody else did.
Okay, because right now my biggest question is the cargo and how well they've been able to stash the battery without impinging on the cargo area. Because as I made a comment in my video review of the Rav4 Prime at the Chicago Auto Show, which if you haven't seen, there's an eye in the upper right corner that just popped up, and you can click that. So thinking of the Prius to the Prius Prime, the Prime battery took up so much space that the cargo area is like 2 inches higher, and it ruins the whole smooth transition when the seats are folded. And so the only mystery in my mind is how well they've done the battery in the Rav4 Prime.
So on the Prius, they didn't just fill in like the underfloor where the spare tire would go? And
no, the trunk deck is noticeably higher because of the battery.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully they did it the way we want to expect on this one.
Yeah, I'm hoping there should be plenty of room in the back there for battery space.
Yeah, I don't know that it's. I realize that we car geeks get really excited about a 2-inch height difference in the floor.
But if you can't pack a stroller in it.
Okay, if you can't put a stroller or a child seat doesn't fit, I get that. But this is sort of like last week I was at the Toyota all-wheel drive event, and there were a few journalists that kept harping on them like, well, is this any taller? Is the Camry all-wheel drive? Is it any taller than the regular Camry? And I'm just like, it's a fucking Camry.
like are they going to go off-roading?
It's not. If you're going to go off-road, you get an off-road vehicle. It's a Camry. The idea of all-wheel drive isn't to make it all-terrain. It's to make it a little more stable.
Right.
And I get that. Yeah.
I got it.
The original Camry hybrid, for instance, had a crappy trunk because it was all batteries. It was small.
Little porthole of a seat.
I don't know that a 2-inch difference in a floor height is going to make a huge. That's just my opinion.
Not an
It does
SUV,
if you're
but in a
sleeping
small
in the
sedan,
back.
or if you're sleeping in it.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay,
And-
sorry,
and
Mark. We keep
It's
interrupting.
just sort of an indication that it's an afterthought and not designed for it.
Yeah.
Another point of interest was at the GM booth. They had a few bolts that were there, but one of them had the GM bicycle that they had a naming contest for mounted to the roof. So this was an electric bicycle that GM made custom. Man, it was ugly. It was an ugly looking vehicle. I wouldn't be caught dead driving this bicycle. It was that ugly. Yeah,
What did they name it?
The
Wow.
417 kilometer range is the combined range of the bicycle and the car.
Before you pass
No,
out.
that was just the bullet, Paul. But good thinking on that.
What
But,
did they name it?
Yeah,
This-
so if the bull dies, you got to get out and ride the bike the last 20 miles.
I was powering the bolt.
Oh man, all sorts of bad jokes available for this car.
I see a new Peloton promotion working in there somehow.
Well, what name won the contest?
Charge your car.
Yeah,
Burrito power.
exactly.
Get a workout and charge your car. Yeah.
So that was kind of interesting to see, and of course the Porsche Taycan was available. Actually, a few of them were on display at the show, and man, beautiful looking car. Very low. Surprising how low the car is. Like it's certainly lower than what I was expecting. Standing beside it, it almost felt very much like the Tesla Roadster. That kind of small roof line, low to the ground, sleek. But I was
So
able
worthless because it can't off-road like a Camry can.
How high?
See?
The all-wheel drive Camry, right? But it was very interesting to sit in. Very sports car like.
I hear Bill Gates just bought one.
Yeah, it was certainly the vehicle was it was upper end. You could definitely tell that just by sitting in it, which is no surprise. It is a Porsche. It has some of those Porsche attributes certainly in this car, and it wears it very well. It's an expensive car, obviously, but it was impressive in person.
Did they have the pricing in Canada? Like, is it 3 million Canadian or something?
Yeah, it's about 3 million Canadian. No, it's like you're getting close to 200,000.
Right.
The other thing that I found interesting about this auto show compared to last year was there were a lot more concepts that were EV than last year. There was not a lot of brand new cars that came out. There was, for example, this BMW Next. This one was very almost paper mache. Like it had very striking lines. You could almost like the angles were very sharp on it. But what was interesting was, that it was very. It almost looked like fake. Like just looking on the outside of it, it was almost like it was rushed. But again, there were a number of different ones that were in the show.
It didn't look styrofoam, did it?
It wasn't quite styrofoam, no. But there were some issues with it just looking at it. The Infinity Inspiration was again another concept. No touch, just you can see in this picture there's an absolutely massive dash. It stretches all the way across almost the whole dash, maybe 3/4, with multiple screens that meld into one. So that was kind of interesting. This Bugatti is not obviously with the tailpipes, it's not an EV. But this was a showstopper. They had this on its own turntable. Just unbelievable.
Does it go faster with 6 tailpipes?
Apparently it does.
It must. I think it does.
And there was a presentation by Toyota at the beginning of the auto show. The president of Toyota Canada was up on stage talking about EVs. He had an interesting point that basically he was saying that since Toyota uses less batteries, they're more efficient with the resources that they have.
Right, I remember reading this.
So basically, he was saying that having a battery that's like a 1.25 kilowatt battery, as opposed to something that has a 70 kilowatt battery, they're basically 43 times more efficient.
That's a ridiculous
because
metric.
they're saying that it takes away from the normal, internal combustion vehicles, but they're not using too much of the EV power, so you're not wasting it. They're always using the full capacity of the battery that's in the vehicle, as opposed to if you had a vehicle with a 70 kilowatt battery and you only drove 20 miles to work, then you're really wasting the rest of the battery. So that was his spin on why Toyota has the smaller batteries and feels that it's the better way to go, in their opinion.
Sounds like they couldn't get enough of them.
It sounds like they're saying, it's almost like you want to be in that meeting where someone said, wait a minute, we don't have a mass-produced EV, so why don't we tell people instead of one car with an 80 kilowatt pack, we'll make 8 cars each with a 10 kilowatt pack, so we've made more cars.
Exactly. It was that kind of marketing spin, almost like the self-driving or self-charging car from Lexus.
Oh, yes.
So
yes.
EV fans hate this stuff from Toyota, but it just, for context, EV sales in the US and China, 2 biggest markets for cars, were basically flat last year. Hybrid sales in both those markets were up like 30%, give or take. No subsidies, no media hype, just going up. So and this is, when people are like, the market is in the middle of this demand-driven shift to 100% EVs, and in a couple of years, people will only buy EVs. If you look at the actual numbers, what people are actually buying, hybrids, which everyone thought was dead like a year ago, 2 years ago, are roaring back, and EV sales are kind of, at the moment anyway, going nowhere, or even actually going down as some of these incentives go away. So we can laugh at this, but Toyota, say what you want about them, they're not sexy, they're not exciting, they're not cutting edge, but they're very, very, very pragmatic.
And the plug-in hybrid makes so much sense for so many people. I mean, people who want to dip their toe into the EV space, they can do their 40-mile commute, and if they want to go on a trip, they can do that as well.
Yeah, I'm glad my first one was a plug-in instead of a Leaf.
Yeah.
Nothing against the Leaf, it just wouldn't work for me, and then the degradation would have killed me.
I mean, I think that Rav4 Prime is gonna sell like crazy when it hits the street.
I do too.
I definitely agree.
So you brought up the point that a lot of the manufacturers either had EVs or concept EVs. And at first glance, I would think that would be for 2 reasons. One is that a lot of the countries of the world are end-of-lifing fossils, and then 2 is that as a designer, you get more freedom when you don't have to package around that ice.
Definitely, I can see that some of that, the freedom thing, definitely, because they've got a really open palette to work with. If you've got a skateboard design, which everyone seems to be going towards, especially with EVs developed from the ground up, it's all that skateboard type platform and allows you that freedom to design whatever you really want on top of it. But it was interesting to see that there were a lot of the EVs that were being displayed were the ones that were last year. There weren't a lot of brand new, besides the Taycan, beside the Mach-E. There was a lot, Nissan came with their standard Leaf, and Chevy is there with their Bolt, and the common ones were there again. It just seemed a little bit pulled back from last year, where last year it seemed that everything was EVs, and this year it wasn't quite that as much. So as Ed was saying, there may be some sort of a little bit of a pullback based on what people are seeing sales wide, because we know that really Tesla is the only one that's selling gangbusters compared to the other EV sales, especially in 2019.
Yeah. Well, Mark, any more car show pictures
Well, we could probably go through the B-roll of 100, but I think we won't do that. Yeah.
You had mentioned more concepts than usual. Any other takeaways? Anything surprise you? Anything catch you off guard?
No. The concepts were really common, Tony, as you and I had discussed last year. Every concept seems to have suicide doors, and more glass than it's possible to put on the side of a car. Those type of things are concept driven, and that's really a lot of it that we saw there. Again, just very much the same from a concept side of things.
And how was the Faraday Future booth?
Oh, that was really interesting. It was painted in invisible paint because I didn't even see it.
Wow, blended right in.
Another Nevada investment in the future that didn't come to fruition.
And another side note on Tesla, they were there displaying, and what it said in the program was that Tesla was going to have some sort of a announcement at 3 p.m. It didn't say what it was going to be. It was TBA, and we went to the Tesla booth for that time. And there was no announcement, and there was no explanation as to why there was no announcement.
Free popcorn.
We were really hoping that it was maybe going to be that Model Y that's been spotted in town now for a couple of weeks, but that was not the case.
That would have been cool.
Wow.
That's so Tesla. Did I say that? I'm sorry.
Elon time.
Yeah. Yeah, but they got you to come.
They got us to stand in front of the booth.
They got you to come stand around. Yes.
Look at the crowds.
That's when their photographer was there shooting the publicity shots. Look at all the people storming our booth.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's so funny.
I admit I wouldn't do it that way if it was me. So
just wait; those pictures will come out soon. Yeah. All right. Well, you know what? We've reached pretty much the end of our hour, and it has been, in my opinion, a very entertaining show tonight. So let's wrap it up. Mark, I'm going to give you an opportunity to rest your voice there. Throw it out to Pat. Pat, any shout out you want to give out tonight?
Sure. I blog occasionally at carswithcords.net. You can find my scribblings there. Thank you.
All right. No, thank you. Hey, Paul, how are things in Boulder? What new cars do you have this week?
Got a couple bolts for sale. Nice ones. What else?
Any with a bicycle on the roof?
yeah, the 400 kilometer range. But if you have a hybrid or an EV and you're in Colorado along the Front Range, check us out. Our website is boulderhc.com.
All right, great. Casey, what's up? What's new?
I've got a couple of videos out recently. I showed you how to get the most charge from your Tesla if you happen to arrive at a station that's more than half full. So it's a less than 2-minute video. Check it out. And I've got another one coming out about what to do if your charge handle is stuck because the button isn't working for some reason at a regular public station or your home charger or the supercharger. Any reason your car would be frozen to the handle that's not ice, like literally ice water. So check that out at youtube.com/CaseyGreen. That's KACEYGREEN.
I hate when I'm charging my car and I get iced. That's just the worst. Yes. Mark, you have any sales going on at the Coghlan Wheel Emporium?
No, I'm full up. But I wanted to give a shout out to the WREVA. We're having a meeting this Friday in Waterloo. If you're interested, just visit our Facebook or Twitter feed and send us a note. We'll be happy to direct you there for Friday at 7 p.m.
Great. Ed, I want to thank you for joining us. Any shout outs? Remind us of the podcast, how to find you on Twitter, and what else is occupying your time.
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter at twitter.com/Tweedermeyer. The Autonocast is on Twitter also at the Autonocast or at autonocast.com. It's a good time to get into it, I think, because we recently had a bunch of sort of CEOs of the big level 4 driving companies, with the CEO of Waymo and top guy at Aptiv and Aurora. Chief Legal Policy Officer at Neuro was just on the show. Our current episode is about riderless scooters, which sounds silly, but is actually like really interesting and addresses a real issue. Believe it or not, it's not just a silly fad.
Tortoise?
Oh,
Yep.
it's for that
Dimitri from
guy
Tortoise.
who's stealing all the scooters that Mark was talking about. They come back home.
Yes, yeah. And they can work to find their way out of the dumpster.
Yeah, exactly. Get out of the
Out
river.
of Lebanc.
Yeah, and if you don't find my my views on Tesla too infuriating, you can go to Amazon or your local bookstore and pick up a copy of Ludicrous: The Unvarnished Story of Tesla Motors, and give it a read.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks for having me. This has been a lot of fun, as always.
Yes, you are always welcome on the show, much to the chagrin of most of the people who watch the show. But no, no, I'm just kidding, of course. Yeah, you're always welcome. And Russell, before I throw it to you, I want to remind everyone that if you are interested in following us, you want to read the news that we're reading, go to facebook.com/whatdrivesus. Someone named Buffer keeps posting news articles to our Facebook feed. The man named Buffer is Patrick, who fills up the feed
you only
regularly
see
scheduled.
it that way because you're an admin. So for most of the world, it just shows up as what drives this post.
Oh, does it? Okay, I didn't know.
Yeah.
That. There's a lot of things I don't know, but now I know it. So, dang it, I just lost something else.
I thought he had a cute nickname.
Well, I've been calling him Buffer.
Since we brought it up, Bufferly is a cool tool for queuing up social media posts if you need to run Twitter or Facebook pages or Instagram or whatever. It's a pretty cool little tool.
No, I'll have to check it out. So check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/whatdrivesus. And if you do use Flipboard as a news aggregator, Philip Barclay and I throw articles into Flipboard, into our magazine. And I would like to think that we do a pretty good job of aggregating news stories. And I want to throw it out, of course, to Russell. Russell, thanks for throwing me into the fire and making me host this week. Hopefully next time I'll do a little better.
I certainly did pick a good week, huh?
Oh, man.
I was like, I talked to Ed and this is a good week for Tony. Let's just throw him to the wolves.
Yeah, you guys should have a rule. If you invite someone on, you host that week.
Oh,
Right.
That'd be a good rule. Let's start that next week, Tony. What do you say?
I kind of like that. Yeah.
No, Tony gets to have a revenge week first.
I want to, of course, thank our friend and my friend, Edward Neidermeyer, for coming on the show and just being great, as always. Whether you agree with him or not, he knows a lot. And that's the whole point of the show, is getting some good opinion on here, getting some good insight on here. I also want to say that, let's see, I posted a couple of things recently on YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/whatdrivesus. Please go there. If you haven't already subscribed, do subscribe. Do hit the bell so that you get notifications and you know when our new content is up. I'm right now posting, actually probably tomorrow, a review on the new Avalon and Camry all-wheel drives, the ones that weren't raised for full off-road capability. But spectacular video, a lot of fun, and you can hear what I think of those cars. If you need an all-wheel drive Camry or Avalon, God knows somebody does. I'll be able to tell you all about it. As always, I want to thank Michael Manring for our amazing theme music. Visit him at manthing.com. You can support this show on Patreon. It's patreon.com/whatdrivesusshow. For as little as $1 a month, less than 25 cents per show, you could be a supporter and help keep us in hookers and blow. I mean, microphones and you know what? We don't have any hookers and blow. We barely have microphones. So we would desperately need, and we very much appreciate, your $1 a month. That's all we ask. If you want to
actually, that $1 a month might help us secure a site where we can get back to live shows with actual chat rooms, and we really want to get back to live shows with chat rooms because that rocked. Having live people actually commenting on the show in real time was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I have to admit, I do miss the Russell drinking game. Yeah. Maybe I need to show up on the Tesla show once in a while, right, Mark? Mark's like, no. Ixnay on the Tesla life.
Cheers.
So nonetheless, I highly recommend Ed's Autonocast. It is the only serious deep dive into autonomous vehicles that I've found, and it's an excellent show. Even though Ed's on it, it's an excellent show.
Tough, but
why did I
fair,
take
as
a dig?
always.
Why did I take a dig at Ed? I should have gone for Alex. You know what I mean? Like, even though Alex Roy is on the show, it's still
Very
a fun
much.
show.
Everyone likes Alex though.
Do they really?
Oh, okay. comes and goes.
Stuff.
I think you're just saying that, like, because he's got like the Tesla fan club thing behind him, man. They'll kick your ass if you get on Alex's case.
I don't know. He's got a little bit of a back and forth. Look, he's an independent-minded guy. He manages to win affection and piss people off in equal measure, which is one of the things I respect about him.
Sometimes at this very same time.
Exactly.
At least that's been my experience. So anyway, do check out Ed's Autonocast. That's all, Tony. I'm going to throw it back to you to say goodnight.
Right. So thanks to everyone. As always, thank Michael Mandarin for our theme music. Visit him at manthing.com. And that's all we've got for this week. So tune in next week or download us and find out what drives us. Here's Michael.
Have a good week, everybody. And drink.